Welcome to the Spice of Life podcast, where we take bold risks, build real wealth, and use money as a tool for freedom and legacy. I'm Luke Spicer, and each week we uncover the principles of ownership, independence, smart risk taking, from silver and gold to business and life. Whether you're an investor, entrepreneur, or tradesperson building something lasting, this show is about creating freedom today and legacy for tomorrow. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Spicer Life podcast. Today on the show, I've got Sunit Suchdev from Little Leaders. She's launched a new online homeschool program to help homeschool parents. And you got a lot of history and background, and I'm just excited that we can talk about tons of stuff, maybe even troll JT a little bit more.
Thanks for having me, Luke. And just so you know, it's pronounced Sunit. The I is like a double
Sunit,
E.
what did I say?
Sunit.
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry. And I even knew it because I was like, Sunit speaks all the time. I'm like, I know that. Sorry. Well, there you go.
Sunit. Sunit.
Sanit,
Yeah. Yeah.
Sanit.
Yeah.
Okay, Sanit.
Got it.
Yeah, I think names are important. So I
Yeah.
probably even should have asked you that at the beginning before because I asked your last name, but I really try hard to make sure if somebody does have a different name from
A unique
cultural
name.
or even just a different spelling and because some
Yeah.
people, because it's important. Like when people spell my name sometimes like the French way and it pisses me
Oh,
off.
yeah.
I'm like, I'm not
Yeah.
French.
Yeah.
Like,
I
I don't,
agree. I'm the same. I think
so
names are important. So,
yeah, of
yeah.
course. So tell me a little bit more about what's happened in your life because you've gone from, I mean, at one point you worked in the pharmaceutical industry, then you
Mm-hmm.
left there,
Mm-hmm.
and tell me when did you leave pharmaceuticals?
I left in 2016.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And
and
it
what
was
made you?
just, well, it was, I started that job in my early 30s, and it was kind of like a dream job when I got into it, right? You're making all this money, you got a company paid car, expense account, credit card, you're hobnobbing with all these fancy doctors. Like it was, I had my undergraduate degrees in health sciences, and up until then, I'd never worked in like big corporate. I'd kind of bounced from one job to another. And I just thought, oh, this is a dream job. Like I get, home office and paid to travel. And then as I got a little bit deeper into working there over a few years, you get your training and you kind of start to understand what's really going on. And it really is sales. This is not like, everybody's like, oh, you work in the pharmaceutical industry, but you start off in sales and you realize this is all sales and marketing. And that just never, right from the beginning, ever since I was a little girl, my mom never gave us medication. I grew up in a very, like, my parents are from India, so I come from an immigrant family and very Eastern kind of practices. So even my mom didn't give us medication or drugs. And it, I never really took them myself. And then when I started to get into this world of understanding the psychology behind the marketing, it kind of felt a little bit slimy, I guess, to me. And then long story short, I ended up getting pregnant, having my kids. And when I finally did get pregnant, like we did struggle with infertility and all of that. And there was a few eye-opening things that happened in that world for me that also you're like, oh, I work in this industry. And then I was about to have my kids, and then I started diving down the rabbit hole of, am I allowed to say the V word?
Yeah. And that's the one thing too. I was like, oh, like hopefully, even Kid when we were talking the other day, because he's episode one, right? And
Right.
like because I wanted to explain what the show was about in episode one, so everybody's heard that, and he started going down same thing, like basically getting canceled, and he was like, so I refer to it. What did he say? That period in our history or whatever he keeps saying,
Right.
right? And I was
Yeah,
like, yeah,
we don't want you
no,
taking off YouTube your first few
no,
episodes, but
yeah, no,
anyway, I think everybody knows what I'm talking about, right?
yeah,
So when it comes to kids, like I was going to be a new mom, and so and being in the pharmaceutical industry and understanding how to read data and what the gold standard was for that, I started going down that rabbit hole, just wanting to learn more about them. And imagine my surprise when I realized that like not a single childhood shot has been put properly through the same rigorous testing that in my company I was taught like we absolutely need to hit X, Y, and Z in order for approval. And even then, there's going to be side effects and bad things are going to happen and we're going to get sued. And then I find out that those companies who make that special type of medication for children, actually, there was a bill passed in 1986 where they can't be sued. So I start diving down these rabbit holes and learning all this stuff. And I'm just thinking, okay, this is crazy. Well, I'm not going to do that to I don't feel comfortable giving these to my kids. So anyway, I made that decision, took my maternity leave, went back to work. Kids were home with a nanny. I was traveling all the time and still climbing the corporate ladder. I mean, listen, it's a really cushy life, right? You're making really good money. And like I said, everything is paid for. You get to pick a new car every 3 years. Your gas is paid for. You get this company credit card. And, but there was something inside of me within that after post kids that I was just like, this is not aligned. I myself am not a big pharma person, taking them myself. I'm not giving them to my kids. And then in 2015, my dad was diagnosed with brain cancer. And that was the first time since my working life, I started working when I was 13 years old. And now I'm 40 at this point, and I was like needing to take time off. I wanted to take time off work to go. I'm, originally from Edmonton, to go to Edmonton to be with my family. My kids were only 3. I had twin boys, and they were only 3 years old at the time. And so I just took a leave of absence from work, and that was the first time I'd ever taken a significant amount of time off of work, aside from, my maternity leave. And went to Edmonton, drove down there, had my car with me, took my dad to his radiation and whatever appointments, and had my kids with me. And as I'm dealing with I'm the type of person that's like, okay, I see the pharmaceutical options here, obviously the chemotherapy, what else can we be doing? I've always been like that. So I started watching these documentaries and going down all these rabbit holes of different holistic things you could be doing, changing your diet, using plant medicine, all this other stuff. And every time I would try to talk to one of the doctors about it, they would just poo-poo me. And I just thought, oh, God, I'm totally now on the patient's side versus before I'm on the pharma side. And now I'm kind of seeing it from a different perspective where the doctor is clearly pushing something on me that his own pharmaceutical company has been selling to him. And I just was getting really frustrated. And so I just kind of took matters into my own hands, did a few things with my dad that seemed to help him. Like we knew he was going to die, but I was trying to prolong his life and his quality of life. And I remember taking him in for one of his radiology appointments. He was diagnosed in October, and this was like end of December. And we go to whatever the cancer center is there in Edmonton. I can't remember now, but I'm sitting in that appointment, and the radiologist says, it's funny, your dad doesn't seem to need steroids yet, which is very uncommon because by this point, with all the radiation, they get radiation to their brain every day for 6 weeks. It's like the lifetime maximum. And he was like, he should have a ton of inflammation by now and be on steroids, but he doesn't. And I thought, oh my God, some of the stuff we're doing is working. Like I had him on like plant medicine, different types of oils, diet. And back then I was just doing my own research. I didn't have any other education around that. And I thought, wow, there is something to all this stuff I've been researching. So I said, well, would you like to hear what I've been doing? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, well, I'll print you off some papers and some data and I'll bring it to you. So every kind of little thing like this that's happened in that course of the 10 years that I worked there, my interactions both with my own company and then my life and then my dad, and watching both sides of this interaction, I just felt more and more like this is not I'm not aligned here. And there's a lot of people who, as you know, Luke, even in 2020, people did things that they didn't agree with just to keep their job. And we know there's people who stay in crappy jobs just because they need a job or just because the money's good, but they don't necessarily agree with what their employer is doing. And I'm just not like that. I've never been that type of person. I'm like, wear my heart on my sleeve. I have to be aligned in every way. I cannot keep my mouth shut. And I was like, okay, if I quit this job, we're going to lose half our income. It's a very cushy job and we're living a nice, comfortable life. And the more I'm thinking about this, the more I'm like, it would be completely like a big, I'd be living a lie if I continued to work here after all the little things that have been buzzing around in my brain, like this isn't for you anymore. And then my dad ended up in hospice and he was really just, he was fading. And at that time, I finally just started to like, read some books, and every day when it was my shift to go sit with him, I'd have a different book, like a parenting book or a book on this or a book on that. And I read this parenting book called Hold On to Your Kids. And I was just sitting by my dad's bed, and I remember it was like July of 2016 or something like that. And I'm reading this book, and it's all about attachment with your kids and how important it is to be with them, especially in these early years. And here I am jet setting around the world working for a pharmaceutical company, leaving them with a nanny. And and also having these thoughts of like, my dad is dying. He worked his whole life only to barely retire, and now he's going to die.
Right.
And he used to think, I'll spend time with my kids and my grandkids and travel after I retire. So I'm having all these thoughts kind of coming together, you know? And I read that book, and my boys were only 3 at the time, and I had taken all that time off work, kind of up and down, and thinking, yeah, like I need to I need to get into alignment. So I need to quit this job. I need to stay home with my kids and do something that is more aligned with me. And so then that was it. I know that was kind of like a little long-winded, but it really
No.
was a bunch of little things that happened, and I just finally thought I can't do this anymore. So I made the decision to quit, and I just quit my job 3 weeks before my dad died.
Oh, wow.
And I had, when my kids were born, I've always been a, like multitasker type A, despite having twins and being on maternity leave. I started a blog when they were 9 months old. It was called Modern Twin Mom. And I would, blog about like what I was doing with them and fashion and motherhood and all of that. And I didn't really know what I was going to do, but I knew it would be something to do more with holistic health and parenting. And I wanted to learn more about that. So, yeah, I quit my job and kind of dove down the online business rabbit hole, went back, got some certifications in holistic health, nutritional medicine, the stuff that I accidentally stumbled upon when my dad
Right.
was sick, like completely the opposite of pharma. And that's kind of where my path in the online space started. And then I started a podcast that year in December of that year. It was called Modern Mommy Prep School. And I talked all about motherhood and parenting and had a bunch of amazing guests on. And that started my whole journey of, the podcast evolved over time as I grew and evolved and, became, my boys are growing and all of that.
How
And
old are your boys now?
they're 13.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
my wife has twin girls. They're 15. They
Yeah.
just
Okay.
turned
Yeah.
15.
So
Yeah.
similar in age. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I've been for 10 years now. Like they're 13. It's all my dad developed cancer when they were 3. So it's been like a 10-year journey of leaving the industry. Like they don't even remember the time that I wasn't at home. They don't remember their nanny. They remember that this, when I've been home with them. And so really my businesses, like I learned how to run an online business. I learned how to run a podcast, and that has evolved over the years. But that's really what kicked it off. And I just kind of go with, wherever I feel like I'm meant to serve. And this we're at, and I took some time off the last few years. I wasn't feeling the best myself. COVID happened. There was a lot going on. We started homeschooling, and it kind of took a little bit more of my time and energy. And so now I'm just kind of getting back into this space of the homeschool space and supporting other people who want to homeschool and hopefully
Did
relaunching the
homeschool
show.
for you start like for the boys? Did that start like during COVID then?
Yeah,
Right.
2020.
So, but up until then, they were going to traditional school.
Yeah, so up
Yeah.
until then, I mean, because I came home when they were 3, and school starts, when they're 5. And so they did kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, and then COVID hit while they were in grade 2, and they went to a little, Montessori private school, and we were very happy with it. But when COVID hit, it was like when they said you can come back, I'm thinking to because I thought it was BS right from the beginning. But I'm thinking, okay, if we send them back, well, what's that going to be like? They're 7 years old, right? Well, I'm thinking, they're going to say, oh, stay away from your friends, 6 feet apart. And are they going to have to mask up? And so if you would have told me like 10 years ago I'd be homeschooling my kids, I would have been like, there's no way I could do that. But I just didn't see another option. And I thought, you know what? We'll pull them out for a year. That was my initial goal. Let's do it for a year. And then hopefully everything will have died down by then and
Yeah.
we'll put them back.
That's how I convinced my ex to let us do it too. Cause like I've got two kids from my first marriage. My wife has two. And they're sandwiched, right? My youngest and my oldest sandwiched, the twins basically. And the twins were always homeschooled by my wife.
Mm,
And so when we got together, right, we were like taking like she would take my kids to school while the twins were like sleeping and doing other things like because they're homeschooled. And my kids hated it. And then when COVID happened, they were like, party time. And my wife was like, no, you guys are gonna keep learning. Like life is about learning. And just because you're not in like school's not where you get an education, you get it in life. And and then after that first few months, then I convinced my ex to let them do the online thing for the first year back. And then my daughter was like, I'm never doing this again. I want to be straight homeschooled. And now she is. She skipped grade nine. She's or skipped grade eight, so she went into high school this year with the twins. And so she's like, but I just love it because we have so much time with them and then they can like work on things that they're passionate about, not things that they have to do, right? They still do the stuff like math and English but they can focus on the stuff that they want to work towards in life, where they don't have to wait
hmm.
till after high school to start exploring these, other passions and those kind of things. So I love it. And now
Yeah.
working from home, because I have a construction background, I was always gone working construction, and I same kind of same thing. Like I want to be around more. Like what other skills do I have that I can, use and leverage so that I can buy back my time? And so that's when I went to work at the investment company so that I could be, making my own hours even better and not being, subjected to weather as when I can work and things like that. So it's been really great. And now I've switched to most of my client meetings are online. So I can work from home most days, which is phenomenal because now, they're out there doing schoolwork. I'm recording with you when they're done. I can go out, have some lunch with them, come back, So it's like I just thoroughly love the time I get to spend with my kids, right? And I'm sure you feel the same way and being with them because I mean, even on your socials, you see them everywhere together. I've always been
Yeah.
curious too. What does your husband do for work?
He is a chiropractor and we own
Oh,
a chiropractic clinic here locally.
okay.
So, yeah.
So he's gone to work.
So yeah, he goes to work. We have a
Yeah,
clinic that,
yeah,
it's a we own it and he goes to work, but he's
yeah,
also got a very he can work however much or little he
of
wants
course.
too. So like right
Yeah.
now he's home on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it's
Oh,
like
nice.
that like what you just said exactly nails it. It's the most undervalued thing about home education is the amount of time you get to spend with your
Yeah.
kids. As I mentioned to you, we just got back the other day from we've been in Mexico for the last couple of weeks, and who can pull their kids out of the school in the middle of October and take them to Mexico? And we spent 24/7 together. And now we're home and they're downstairs, like, reading, and I'm up here with you. And then we're
Yeah.
going to get off and do some math. And it really is so beautiful. And I think with, what's happening in the school system today, it's getting wild out there. Not only are like mental health issues on the rise and all of this, but the levels of stress, anxiety, craziness, and kids are spending no time with their parents.
No.
And no wonder we have societies crumbling. So I think that aside from the forget the education piece of it, I always say that people just put way too much pressure on that. Oh, well, how are they going to get into university? Or what about the testing? How do you know they're up to speed? I'm like, actually, I don't care about that. I care that my kids
Yeah.
they're going to find their passion, do what they love, be successful, and that we have a very tight knit bond with them. Like I'll literally be upstairs in my room and my kid will be down here and he'll be like, Mom, where are you? And I'm like, I'm upstairs. He's like, I miss you. Like they're 13. Like, so it's just, yeah, it's been really beautiful. And, like I said, I never thought I would do it, but after the first year, it was going so well that we just kind of kept going. And then I had people asking me, like, well, how do I do that? And so that is kind of what finally prompted me to launch this program, because now more than ever, more and more people want to pull their kids out, but they're nervous, they're scared. And when
Yeah.
I did it, I really did not know what I was doing. I wish I had more of a like-minded
Mm.
community to support me, which I did not. And so now I'm just kind of offering to people what I wish I had. And a
Yeah,
big piece of it, Luke, as you probably know, there's a mindset piece to this too, right? With
for sure.
parents, where it's like they think they're not worthy, or they're not good enough, or how am I going to teach my kid? I don't know anything, or there's so many barriers that come up. And that I had that too. But now more than ever, I think it's important that parents understand that you're thinking of overthinking it way too much. You just got to go for it, because the jobs that we think we are preparing them for right now are probably not even going to exist in 10 years.
No, no. Well, and I mean, I think it's hard too when you talk about mindset, not hard. It's hard for other people to grasp it because I
Yeah.
think the bulk of parents at homeschool are entrepreneurial, most of
Yes.
them, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we have a different mindset around life in general, about creating, and then finding ways to take responsibility and empower our kids to grow and evolve. Um, our girls, and I don't say this because I'm their dad, but they're wicked smart. They do
Yeah.
their schoolwork, they do everything. So does my son. He works. He's been online forever. He's never homeschooled because he wanted to play school sports like basketball.
Hmm.
So he's in grade 12 this year. I mean, Alberta teachers are on strike, so
Right.
there's no school for them. Our kids are still doing schoolwork. They're
Yes.
staying ahead. They downloaded everything off the portal when the strike started to kind of talk about that 3 weeks ago, because they're like, well, we're not slowing down. So they're working. So all their classmates, I'm sure, are just like playing and doing whatever. You see kids everywhere in town, and like we go out and do stuff, but they're doing their work still to stay on top. But he works for a construction company. These guys started with me when they were in high school. 10 years later, they start their own business. They've been in business now 12 years, and my son's now same age as them, working for them. The difference is he worked for me for 3 years before it, like, growing
Yeah.
up with, and so he's working with them. He's 17, just turned 17 this summer. He's making 4 or 5 grand every month. And he goes to school, does all the schoolwork, he goes to the gym, and older people and some of his friends, why are you doing this? Why do you work so hard? Be a kid. He's like, I don't I don't want to have to work when I'm 50.
Yeah.
Like, and I love seeing it because he's like investing, he's working, he's learning, he's taking courses online. Like, our girls are doing the same thing. Like, what kind of things do you want to learn about? So now they're, you know, art lessons and horse riding and dance and going to, so they can do all these things. And I assume like you guys do a lot of that as well, right? What do the boys like to do for fun?
Well, people always ask this, and I'm like, this is just life. Like, where we've never been, my husband's a chiropractor. He does not believe in excessive sports at an early age. Whatever they show a
Hmm?
proclivity for, that's what they go into. So, from a very young age, we put them into martial arts, swimming, like the basic life
Yeah.
skill type sports. And they stuck with MMA, so they do MMA.
Oh, nice.
They're taking a coding class twice a week outside of the home, because that's not my zone of genius at all. And we also don't use screens to teach. So I don't want them on a computer learning to code. Well, obviously they're going to be on a computer, but I don't want them self-teaching. I want them to get out into the world and, have a teacher. So they go to a coding class. One of my sons is really into racing, like car racing. And his goal is to get himself a go-kart and get into the racing world. We told him that's expensive, so you're gonna have to figure out a way to make money to do that. So he's always
Yeah.
coming up with a new business idea. And my other son is super into like coding and gaming, and wants to have like a YouTube channel. And so yeah, it's just like we just kind of follow their interest wherever they lean. That is what they do for fun. So it's not like they're in any type of really big organized sport. We just kind of watch to see which way they lean, and then we throw them that way.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think that's another thing with the entrepreneurial mindset, and then, what evolves into homeschooling parents is that,
Yeah.
like, it's not about forcing the kids to do anything. It's about, like, yeah, giving them exposure to many things so that they can
Hmm.
start to go, wow, I like that, or no, I don't. And I think it becomes really difficult when your kid's in school for 8 hours a day at another building, because then as parents, you're like, well, I want to spend some time with them, and then parents are driving their kids to all these different activities and doing all sorts of things every night, and they don't really, and I mean, we do too, right? They've got their classes and dance, and but these are all things that they want to do, right?
Yeah.
And so they're like, I want to explore this. And so um yeah, I mean, I love it. And the fact that, my wife's at home with them, being, mom and hard, right? We always say it, right?
Yeah.
She helps me with the business and does social posts and things like that, and helps with some of the tech stuff for me. Um, but like the idea of her going off working for somebody else would just drive me nuts. I'm like, I would never want that. And I try to talk to a lot of people when it comes to, "Oh, I could never homeschool, I'd like to." And I'm like, well, why can't you? Well, I work full time. I'm like, well, quit. What does your husband do? Like, can't he, you know, doesn't he make enough to support the family? Like most families, I should say, it's not the moms, it's like the families don't really realize how much they lose in taxes and other expenses to have both people working, right? Like, so when you really get serious about it and you can actually invest differently in your kids' future, it's priceless, the amount of influence we can give to our kids by keeping them home.
Yeah, and not only that, I've had that argument comes up a lot with me too, where people say, "Well, I have to work." And I'm like, "So what does that mean? You have to work." I understand some people have to work for the money.
Yeah.
But some people will say, "Well, I have to work." And they think that that means, well, I won't have time to educate my kids. And I'm like, "Well, remember that educating doesn't have to happen between 8 and 2 like regular school. You can still go to work and educate your children in the evenings, weekends, holidays. It really, people would be shocked at how quickly you can get through. Like, it's October, my kids are in grade 8 and they're already done grade 8 curriculum. They're moved
Yeah.
on to grade 9. And then the other piece that will come up is they'll say, well, I have to work, therefore I have no childcare. And then I'm like, okay, well, then you don't have a homeschool problem, you have a childcare problem.
Yeah.
And that's another mindset piece, right? Where people, the system has really made it so that, yeah, both parents need to be working, and then school is free childcare. And now you rely on that, on the system for the childcare. But what did you do before they were in school? Did you have daycare? Did you have nanny? Did you have family helping out? Are there other homeschool families that could help do the childcare piece of it? There's lots of options, but people get really caught up in this, like, well, I can't because I have to work. But you probably can. You just got to identify, is this a money problem? Is this a childcare problem? And then work on that. I really believe that it is possible for everybody to do. Yes, it might be trickier. Like, I get single moms reaching out to me all the time. I'm a single mom. And I get it, it's hard, but I also have single moms in my community who have, who homeschool their kids, and
Course.
they have jobs where they're able to just bring their kid with them, or they to figure out a way to make money online or whatever. So I think if your mind is open to the possibilities in today's day and age of what you could be doing outside of a 9 to 5 go to work job, then I think it's completely possible for everybody.
If you're interested in a new approach for your investing and you want to learn how to get involved in real assets like real estate, silver, gold, land, hit us up and we can help you out. Are those some of the things that you help and discuss in your program, Little Leaders, or is it more focused on the kids?
It's everything.
It's
I
everything.
just launched in September, so my goal is to build up a community where, the setup, it's a circle community. So the setup is like Facebook, where people can come in, ask questions. We run, like, monthly meetings. The goal is to make it so big that we eventually have, people from all over the country, and we can set up our own in-person meetups too. So, and then the kid piece of it. So the curriculum and kid piece of it is me guiding them on how to guide their kids. Like, I'm not the teacher.
No.
I'm there for the parents to feel confident, to shift their mindset, to help coach their children. But yes, there's that's another piece of it is, I had somebody reach out the other day saying, I'm a single mom. I really want to pull my daughter out. I don't know how to do this. Do you know of anyone else who's doing it? I was like, yeah, I have somebody in my community who's doing that. So that would be where you would join the community and you've got somebody else going through it that you can then connect with and get that support from each other. As you know, from the last 5 years, one of the best places to be is amongst people who think like you, right? Or who can give you support or ideas. So the purpose of the community is twofold. A, it's to provide them kind of a unstructured kind of homeschool curriculum to give people an idea of, okay, my kid's in grade 1, what should they be learning and how do I go about teaching it? But then the other piece is really that community piece where it's like you can come with any problem, any question, any issue, share your wins. Hey, like the other day we watched this documentary, funny thing happened on the way to the moon about whether the moon landing was real. And I know because I'm very particular about who's entering the community that it is all people who are open to teaching, showing their kids both sides of stuff. So it's something I shared. Hey guys, we watched this today. Great documentary for anybody who's about this age to this age. So the community is really meant as a place to share ideas and lean on each other.
Right. Yeah, which is so important. I mean, and I think we've all known that community and having a support system around has been important for millennia.
Yeah.
And then I feel like a lot of it has been broken down to break down the family structure, break down community, separate us so that we're all
Yes.
these lone wolf pods. And even in that, like if you really back up and you think about like the American dream and all of this, and I still consider that in Canada, right? The North American dream, but it's like go off, get your own house, start a business, do it yourself, do everything by yourself and make a statement and be the man or woman. And it's like, no, like you'll go way further with a team than you'll ever go by yourself. It's so much better. Um, we're even going through that right now. Our girls are, they're in grade 10, but they're starting to talk about like life after high school and careers and university or not, and that's why they decided to do the online thing for high school so that there was no questioning at the end of it when they're done if they could go on to university. And I'm always like, why do you want to go to university? Like, do you want to do something that you need a degree for, or like what do you want to do? Well, they're like, well, we don't know. I'm like, okay, fine. And last night or yesterday, I was discussing with two of the girls. Um, they were talking about like how they needed to go out because they need to get careers because they need to make money because they need to be able to pay for their like lifestyle. And I was like, well, what about being married and doing that? And they're like, well, yeah, but like we don't want to rely on no man, and this and that. And I was like, you can rely on dad. Why don't you work for the family business? We were kind of talking, and they're like, yeah, I don't know. There's not really a lot that we could do. And I'm like, well, not yet because you're 15, but you can still be learning. And then I said, well, what if you just had a really great husband? They're like, well, like he's going to want to make sure that, we know how to do things. And, they're kind of going down that. I was like, well, we could just like arrange marriages for you, like kind of joking. And they just were like, no way, and it really made me think though, as, oh, wow, like they're getting to that age where they're thinking about like what happens. And I think it's like the movement down to like even past feminism and this like boss babe culture and all of this thing where like don't get me wrong, I think strong, independent and strong-willed women is a good thing, but I'm also like, what happened to the part about like letting women be mothers and the things that that were designed to be, because it's a beautiful thing when there's I see that in the homeschool groups, right? So often the moms are like traditional moms at home doing their things and they want to do something to contribute to the, family income household. So they're launching, yeah, online businesses. They're doing different, stay home projects, right? I see so many that are in the country like farm stands and selling eggs and, bread
Yeah.
and I'm like, good. And then they're feeding their community, right? And so it's really neat. Different in Alberta when we're, out in the country and things like that. People are, a little bit different out here than like the cities, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. And I think that's the other piece to this too, Luke. It's like um, that mindset, going back to that mindset piece, I always say to parents, your job, as a mother or a parent is to become like detectives and really kind of look at, okay, what are my child's strengths right now, and in which way can I push them? And a part of that is what you just spoke about, whether you have sons or daughters, is really making sure that you're exemplifying what you want for them. Like I was raised in a very traditional home, but it was also drilled into me, you go to university, you get a good job, you be successful, but one day you might get married and marry somebody successful who it's okay if you don't work. So you should have both. You should be able to have that intelligence and, know what your strengths and your talents and skills are. But like for me, like, working like I was working since I was 13 years old. I didn't get married until my early 30s. I didn't start this big job until my early 30s. And I felt so important running around, leaving my kids home with a nanny. And when I quit my job, it was a huge hit to our household, literally splitting our income in half.
Right.
And you do have that feeling of like, okay, I'm not contributing financially anymore. However, now when I look at our boys and what staying home and homeschooling them has provided for us, which is, I always say to people, just my kids just speak for themselves. Anybody who meets our kids is always like, wow, your kids, they're so kind and sweet and well behaved. They're so attached to us still as teenagers. There's no attitude, there's no back talk. They like hanging out with us. There's value in that nobody talks about, right?
Yeah.
But now my boys are growing up seeing that in us, like seeing me as a nurturing mother, cooking, cleaning, whatever. They help out cleaning too. They're learning how to do all that as well. They
Mhm.
help out around the house. But I hope that when it's time for them to go and seek a partner, that they are looking at what dad and mom did and what dad did for mom and what mom provided for the family. So it's like you're constantly providing this example of what where you kind of want them to go, and also at the same time being that detective to kind of be like, okay, this is kind of the way they're leaning, let's help them strengthen it, have a nice balance. So that's the other mindset piece of this too, is it takes a lot of energy and effort to really raise up well-rounded kids in every
Oh,
way,
yeah.
right? So I think that's great that your daughters have that drive to be independent and all of that. But then also, yeah, being that example for them and showing them like what's possible in what they're looking for.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and and they kind of have a better idea about what they want, but it's still like at that age, it's still hard to envision like, yeah, 10 years down the road,
Yeah.
15 years down the road, like you can say, well, I want to be X, but then it's okay, back that up. Like, what does that look like?
Hmm.
How do you achieve that? And I do that a lot in my life with planning and, setting goals and working through
Yeah.
it. We do it with them and it's been it's just it has been really neat to see it unfold. Obviously raising my son and like having, it's very different raising a boy than it is raising a girl,
Yeah.
so the girls are really close with my wife obviously, and doing that stuff and all the lady things, and like hair and makeup and doing nails. And one of my girls is like making like acrylic nails and stuff now, and she's been
Oh,
really doing it. And now she's got like the girls from dance like coming over, and she's paying her to do
oh, good
her
for
nails and
her.
stuff. And
See,
I'm
that's
like, right,
amazing.
yeah, yeah. And like one daughter that's the artist is like, um, yeah, painting and drawing and tons of stuff for that, and selling some. She sold some art and stuff, so that's pretty cool. At 13, she'll be 14 in November, to be like
Yeah,
selling pieces of art and like a few $100 and stuff, right? So like doing like portraits of
absolutely.
dogs and things. And so yeah, I mean, as makes a proud father, right?
For
But
sure.
the biggest thing that I see is still again like how we show up in everyday life, and like they're respectful, nice kids, like they're out in society, they're treating people kind, they stick up for people, they do those kind of things. They're like a little pack mob, right? When they were even younger at the parks and stuff like that. And hey, don't be mean to that kid, sticking up for kids and stuff. It was so funny. When you were talking before about working and going through, I did want to comment on some of that stuff, because online, right? Because of the image that I think a lot of people have built through COVID, right? And being, you know, on a certain side of the equation, right? A lot of them are self self-imposed experts on theories, but like I do find that comical reading some of your posts when you talk about health and wellness and nutrition, and then they lump you into some of those like homeschool, stay-at-home, power moms that don't know anything, and I'm like, this lady was in the pharmaceutical industry for like what, like a decade or more, right? Like how long were you in there?
10
Was it a
years.
decade? Yeah. And so like if anybody can speak about it, it's you. I've said that a few times on there and I'm like, people don't realize that. And so when it comes from when you talked about your whole story and going through and traveling, there was that Netflix movie with that lady where she was like, I forget what it's called, like the pharma movie, right? Do you know what I'm talking about?
The old one, or which one are you talking about?
Just came out like 2 years ago, I think. It was like she's literally selling, going to the doctors, doing all the things, selling it, and then she ended up leaving, right, the industry and stuff. But like as I went through and watched that movie, I'm like, yeah, these things happen. I mean, I've been in sales my whole life. I just sold my own stuff, right? I sold concrete. Now I'm selling silver and gold and investments, and I work with some other companies to help with sales, programs and things. And I've always struggled with anybody that can go out and I say like unethically sell something they don't believe in, right? Just to make a buck. And I'm like, what do you, well, I gotta get a job. I'm like, okay, but if you don't believe in it, like then go do something different, right? So, um, yeah, it's hard. And I've never been a fan of any of that stuff. I try to keep it as holistic as possible all the time. My wife studies plant medicine and herbs, and some people go, "Oh, she's a quack." I'm like, everything comes from
Everything
the
comes from
earth,
plants.
right?
Even
Originally,
pharmaceuticals are made from
that's
plants. That's
where it
what
comes
people
from
don't
originally.
realize. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
think it's interesting because so most people who get into the pharmaceutical industry, they do start off as sales reps, as I did. But because I was there for 10 years, like I moved up, I was that typical type A climbing the corporate ladder. So I got up, I saw many different pieces. Like I was in medical education and different things. And I can spot a marketing gimmick like a mile away in the pharmaceutical industry. And,
right.
I always explain this to people, especially the people who they come onto my page and they think they know me. And I always say, like, do you understand that a company will hire a whole sales force a year or two before the product is even going to launch, just to get out there and start spreading the whatever it is, it's either going to
News,
be fear or it's going to be like, hey, did you know that this is a problem? I remember that it was like a year or two before we launched one of our drugs. They hired a whole sales force. There was nothing even to sell, but what they were going to sell was, hey, did you guys know like this particular disease state, even though there's already a medication for it, that medication, it's really not effective. And suddenly, this disease state that nobody was talking about, everybody was talking about it. And so they're trying to create, what's that uh, problem reaction solution or whatever they call it. It's like the part of the marketing of the pharmaceutical industry is to create the problem and then come in and give you the solution. So
yeah,
when COVID hit in 2020, I remember it was February of 2020, and you started hearing these little like, oh, there's this virus coming out of China. And I was on a field trip, like a ski field trip with my
right.
kids. And I'm sitting on the bus, the school bus, and another mom beside me. And she's like, oh my God, did you hear about blah, blah, blah happening in China? And they're saying that it might come here. And right away, I just looked at her and I just laughed. And I was like, she's like, aren't you scared? And I was like, no, because I could already see what was happening. They're trying to create
Yeah,
this big scare. And I knew right away this is going to become something big and they are going to push a V for it. Like I knew February of 2020, I knew right away. I was like, this is such a big propaganda because I had spent 10 years watching companies do that. Is literally what they do. They're not just being provided a solution. There is a
yeah.
big orchestrated
Oh yeah.
game here, right? And so, like you said, it's like people don't really understand the intricacies of how all of this works, including the fact that they're spending billions of dollars doing marketing. They're not even selling the drug yet, and they're just making you, hey, remember how scary, remember this disease? It's pretty scary. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, once the fear is built up and the market is ready for it, they're going to swoop in and give you the solution. It's just like literally how it works. And so many people don't.
Do you think that's what's happening with this polio talk right now then?
Oh, I haven't heard. Has there been polio talk? I haven't heard of it.
See,
I mean,
and
I
see,
hear it all the time from a like, oh, what about polio? Just because of the childhood shots thing,
yeah.
but I haven't seen it be. Is it like a big thing?
Well, I don't see, maybe it's not, but maybe I'm just seeing it spread from people that spend more of their life living in fear,
Right.
right?
Well, so can I share something with you about polio? First of all, the polio thing, like you hear it all the time, like, "Oh, they had good luck with polio," right? When people find out that you don't inject your kids with poison. The thing about all, first of all, polio never disappeared. If you actually look at the symptoms of what polio is, it's just been renamed. People are still walking around with these symptoms of paralysis from the neck down. Transverse myelitis is what it's called now. Guillain-Barre syndrome is another one. And back in the days of polio, if you there's actually so many resources and books you can read on this. It was the DDT. They were literally hosing people down with DDT, which was like a pesticide. They were hosing down kids, and it was a neurotoxin. So it was causing paralysis in people. And then, oh, magically they come up with some sort of a shot that's supposed to help this when really they just stopped spraying DDT. And then you fast forward to now and you see kids developing transverse myelitis, Guillain-Barre syndrome, and all this. This is happening after getting shots, like the flu shot or different. It's literally listed as a side effect in the product monograph that this could
Yeah.
happen. And so there is such a misinformation and misunderstanding out there. And I believe 2 years ago or 3 years ago, there was like only one known case of polio in the Western world, and it was vaccine derived polio. Like somebody got the shot and then developed paralysis. And that is the only type of polio that was even circulating globally. So when you say, oh, what's all this talk about polio? I think it's just because so many people are questioning childhood shots now after COVID, that that's the first thing that someone who's going to argue with you is going to come in and say, oh, well, what about
Uh,
polio? And it is being talked about. Like I see it on a lot of threads, because you know everything happening in the States with RFK Jr.
oh
and
yeah.
all this stuff, right? More and more people are questioning shots. So you always get that troll that comes in, and that's their only argument. What about polio? Well, what about it? Do you even know what it was, or that it's been renamed, or that the shots are actually causing these symptoms? So that might be what you're referring to, but I just thought I'd give a
Yeah.
little bit of expansion on that.
Yeah, no, and I mean that's probably it because I've seen posts and stats from like, cases in Alberta, and it just reminded me of like when everything flared up in 2020, and like they were just this fear campaign. But when you look like, I mean, I love studying history from a financial and economic standpoint, but also you just learn other stuff from studying history. And when you look at like, you know, communist regimes and all of these governments that took over, they started with fear propaganda, and not just to scare people. And this is the thing that I think a lot of people miss. It's like when your body is in a state of fear or shock, you don't respond well to lots of stuff. You're easier to manipulate, you're easier to get sick, you're easier. So if they can break your immune system down by inundating you with fear, whatever that's going to be, then you're more susceptible to what's coming next as a solution, right? And I it's like we live out in the country. The farmers all around us spray their crops, right? Because that's just what happens. And so we um we don't obviously use anything like that. We've got our own gardens and things, but you're gonna get like overspray and all this. The city, like we're in the country, but we're in the city limits. So we got
Hmm.
5 acres, but and we're like all surrounded by farm, but we're just in the annexed area.
Yeah.
So the city takes care of our road, and we're like on a main range road paved. It's a main one, right? So they like come down the ditch and they like cut the ditches with the grass, but they come by and they spray the ditches too for like dandelions and stuff. And it makes me so angry because like, when they were talking about not spraying in the city this year for dandelions, and then the different different people, right? Some people were mad that there's dandelions growing and they're wrecking their grass, and other people are like, well, who cares? Like, it's good for our animals. And I'm like, do you know a dandelion in nature is designed to like the reason they show up in parks and stuff is because the ground is trampled, the dirt is like pushed down. It's there to aerate the soil. It serves a freaking purpose.
And they
And so
make a
you get
great cleansing tea too.
yeah, well, and then when you start to find out that like, the company that makes, Roundup and that kills the dandelions also owns the rights to the
There.
heart medicine, right? And then you're like, "Oh, and dandelions and the root and things are good for your heart." And you're like,
And your
"Oh,"
liver.
and people are like, "You're a conspiracy theorist." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." One of the things that I really learned throughout the last few years, especially doing this for my business, because I came from a construction background.
Okay.
So then, and I invested and I did all this on my own and as a client. And so I understood what we're doing. So when I started talking about it, everybody was like, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. Like I say, everybody in the financial industry
Yeah.
trying to downplay what I was doing. And I got frustrated for the first year. And then I realized like I actually just needed to focus and talk to people that were open to learning and open to wanting to have intelligent conversations. And I just forget everybody else. It's kind of the same thing now with most stuff on social media, most things. And not that I want to remain in an echo chamber, because I actually have a lot of people that are on the other side of things that were, acquaintances, friends. I want to hear the other side because the best way
Yeah.
to argue your side is to know the other side inside and out. So
Totally.
I do that so that I can get that information, but I'm not arguing with them at the same time, right?
Hmm.
Like if people say, "Well, you're wrong," I'm like, "Okay, no problem. Just I'm going over here." Like
Hmm.
because it's not worth my peace of mind anymore to start arguing with people and talking. And I do hope with this podcast and getting more, having good conversations like this and getting more information out to the world to at least let people start to think a little bit more and do a little bit more research instead of just arguing because they want to be right, you know?
Yeah, I think just asking questions. That's I always say it just, when I'm so passionate obviously about kids and shots and that kind of stuff, which I talk about all the time. And I always say, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you what I do and what I would do, which is ask questions and do your research. Don't just believe what you're fed because trust me, there are pharmaceutical companies that are going in to see your doctor and they're just giving their doctor a tagline and he's feeding that to you. He doesn't know any more about this than you do. And that's what people need to step outside of it. Is they need to step outside of this idea that my government cares about me or they know more than I do. And I really think my husband and I talk about this all the time. People have just become so lazy. They want the work done for them. And so they
Mhm.
like it when the government says, okay, do this. Now do this. They like it when they're just told what to do, which is wild because I've never been like that. Like, even when I was growing up as a teenager, I don't like to be told what to do. But so many people now are just like, just tell me what to do. I'll do that. It's
Yeah.
sad.
How is that coming growing up in your with your culture and your family and like applauded and encouraged from your parents
No.
or even worse than like regular like
Yeah, no,
to
I was the black sheep, because in my culture, for the most part, women are just told to like be quiet and don't say much. And I mean, it's a little bit different now, but growing up, I was more of a I say what I think. I was a lot like my dad, actually.
okay.
And it caused friction because, I was a teenager in growing up in Edmonton. I was born in the mid 70s. So you can imagine I'm in school in the 80s and 90s. There was no, like, I was the only brown person and it was all white people. And so those were all my friends and their culture didn't match up with mine. So, I wasn't allowed to like date or go out with my friends. My parents were very strict. And so there was not a lot of rebellion that happened because that's the other piece of it where I always say, like, I grew up with this balance of I was feisty. I was a difficult teenager, but at the same time, I wasn't that kid that, like runs away from home or goes and completely rebels. Um, and so now we're raising our kids with that healthy balance of we are strict, but I I'm grateful for the way I was raised. My parents kept a very close eye on us. And I did say what I thought, and they didn't like that because that's not our culture. But at the same
Yeah.
time, they knew I was just kind of feisty that way. So we made it work.
My daughter was really meek when my wife came into our life, and the twins are very outspoken, and my wife has like instilled that in all three girls to like voice your opinion. And at, at first as they were younger, even now they're like, when I get it, but it's like they would like what I would consider at the time like back talking,
Yeah.
things like that. But my wife's like, and then she really helped me. She's like, listen, like, do you want the girls to grow up and be like me? And I was like, yeah. She's like, well, then they need to know that not like they need to know that they can voice their opinion and that men will respond to that, right? In a positive way or negative. But if you respond to it in a good way, you'll show them what a good man's like. And so if they go, no, I don't like that, and the man pushes back, right? Then they're gonna go, whoa, this is like so weird. But if you go, I don't care, blah, 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 then they're gonna learn that their words don't matter. And I was like, oh damn, when you put it like that, I was like, okay. And then it was like there was some testing going on. But
Your
at the
wife
end of the
sounds like
day,
a smart lady.
yeah, but at the end of the day, like I look at it now and like, even once in a while it's like they'll say something and my wife will be like, oh, because they'll do it back to her sometimes, right? And like
Mhm.
obviously, and it's like, but once I realized that, and then I saw how they were out in public, I was like, yeah, they're not going to be pushovers, and that's what I want, right? And I kind of joke as a dad, right? And like to have the boys come over and be like, whoa, your girls sure are, like like not needy, but like spoiled. And I'm like, yeah, I hope so. You better be doing well to treat them good so that they know they're like, well, my dad would do this. My dad would do
Exactly.
that. So I want that to be a thing. And I was raised that way, I think, for the most part, like my dad, very respectful towards women and making sure that things are done right, a protector,
Hmm.
right? And I've always tried to, instill that. In my son, right? And his friends, that's the other thing too, right? Like when you start to think about, again, construction and some of the, jokes or locker room jokes and things like that, that you maybe would go like, I don't really agree with that, but I'm not going to say anything. And then it's like, no, you need to be the guy that stands up and says, no, 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 that's not the right thing. And it's, created some tension once in a while, but at least the younger guys, especially, they'd start to go, oh, like, okay. I can remember being like one of the dads that would be, again, because of just my schedule, I could be there for the sporting events and things. And so often I would take my son to the basketball tournaments, but it would be all the moms there. Dads are
Hmm.
working, and the way that a lot of these boys would like treat their moms, back talking and things like that. And I was like, who the hell do you think you are talking to your mom like that? Like you're saying, we're talking about where we're going for dinner, and you're saying we're going over here, and you're like lecturing her. I said, you ain't going to a damn place that your mom doesn't want to go because she's the one paying it. So you better shut your mouth. And they'd be like, oh my God. And then all the boys would be like, your dad's crazy. He's like, no, my dad's serious. He ain't messing around. Like, we're gonna go where they say because that's what needs to happen because they're paying and driving. And these moms will
Yeah.
like it when
Pa- Parenting is a whole other topic these days. I mean, that's like another episode kind of. It's just, I feel like too many parents are letting their kids get away with that
yeah.
these days, right? It's
Mhm.
just, I don't know what has happened to parents. I don't know if it's laziness. I don't know if it's exhaustion or not knowing that they can expect more of their kids, but that doesn't fly around here at
No,
all.
no.
So yeah, no, that's good.
Most traditional, most homeschool families that I see, most of the kids are pretty respectful.
Hmm.
Like I honestly do, and I think it's because, we're not like I don't want to be my kid's best friend, but I
Yeah.
also want my kids to know that I'm there for them for everything and to help them out. And like we only have one rule in our house, and it's don't lie to me. That's it.
Yeah.
Because I don't care what you did. If you tell me the truth, I can help you solve it. But there's consequences to every decision you make. So, like, if you break something, wreck something, steal something, the consequence of telling me is I can help you fix it. Doesn't mean you're not in trouble. Doesn't mean you're gonna get away with not fixing it. Like you're gonna
Hmm.
have to go and, we've gone out to the shop and fixed lots of stuff that's been broke over the years or, whatever, but they told it and they learn how to, develop a new skill. And so it's like kind of cool where I think that, a lot of parents just, yeah, let their kids get away with murder in the home, so to speak, and then they just go out into society and they're just like used to this self-entitlement and they're brats. And that's what we see.
Yep,
Again, another reason why I like having my kids home because I have more time with them. So we can work
exactly.
on little things. It's not like they're coming home at the end of the day and it's like, here's a list of chores and you got to do all these things. And they don't have a lot of time. Like, they need to decompress after school and do these things. So my wife's instilled this thing where they'll do, 45 minutes of work, 50 minutes of work, and then they'll go out and they'll just do a loop around the yard, the acreage with the dogs, and then they'll get some jitters out and come back in. So we're all really not looking forward to the weather that's coming for Alberta here soon because
Yeah, yeah,
it's going to be a little bit harder. You guys are lucky out there because you get, it rains a lot and that's it in the winter,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
you'll have, at least it's nice. And um, yeah, that's super good. So your program then, you've launched it now. I want to talk about that a little bit more before we
Yeah.
wrap up. So how can people get involved? Is it like a monthly commitment? Is it a program? Like what exactly are you doing with Little Leaders?
So basically, anybody who, I say it's kind of a rolling enrollment. So I opened it up in September, and anybody who wanted to start homeschooling in September really wanted some guidance, really wanted a laid out program for the whole year. It's like a done for you curriculum, like, week by week of
Okay.
kind of follows along with basic Canadian curriculum, but in a way that's like, here's how you work grade one math into daily life where you're not sitting and doing
Mm,
workbooks all day. That
okay.
kind of thing. Because that's the type of homeschool we're doing. I don't follow a strict curriculum like let's sit down and do workbooks. I've really figured out a way to make it integrate with their life. And so I've got that program for each grade. It's $9.99 for the whole year. You buy the curriculum, you get access to the community and myself with that. But maybe you put your kids in school in September and then all of a sudden November rolls around and you're like, okay, no, I can't do this anymore. You can still join and get the year of curriculum for $9.99 to go from November to November with your membership. So it's a rolling enrollment that way for the whole curriculum. If you're like, you know what, I don't need the curriculum, I kind of already know what I'm doing from a teaching perspective, but I want access to just a like minded community where I can share ideas, ask questions, and still have access to me, then right now it's $49 a month. You can join or quit anytime. And I mean, people can join anytime, but I've kind of made a commitment to about once every 6 to 8 weeks, just kind of promoting it again. So, I took October off because we were vacationing
God.
and stuff, but next week I'll be opening it up again and promoting it. So if anybody is interested, I always say the best thing to do is reach out to me. You can DM me, you can email me, or you can get on my email list. And I don't know if you do show notes, but I can
Yeah,
send you the link to my list so that you can pop it below.
for
And
sure.
anybody
Yeah.
who's interested, just get on my email list, and then you'll start getting the emails, which will, and if you don't want to join the community or the curriculum, still get on the email list because it's a way to just stay connected in with me and me just sharing different ideas and stuff like that.
Is your community one big community, or do you have it like divided out based off of grades and
Right.
schools?
No, right now it's
Everybody?
just one
Okay.
big community. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
which is
because I
great.
just launched, it's still small. And, we even have like we've got a dad in there who's only got an 18-month-old. So he didn't buy the curriculum, but he wanted to be part of the community because he's forward thinking and being very
Yeah.
intentional as a parent. And so he wants to see, okay, what's everybody else doing with their kids and, asking questions and that kind of thing.
I
So
actually think
yeah.
it's better that it is everybody because as a new parent or somebody with younger kids going in, like, well, what does this look like down the road, than to have people that are doing high school or junior high or whatever to then see how they're going. Then it would give those new fresh parents to homeschooling, like, kind of like, oh, this is what's going to happen down the road. Like, I can,
Yeah.
foreshadowing for them, right? Which is a good thing.
Yes, and not to mention, if I were to split it up by grade, then I'm just doing what schools do, right?
Yeah.
And it's like we want everybody together. Like we did a Zoom call last week where we had like the parents and the kids all on together,
Oh,
and
cool.
so the kids can see each other's faces. And I'm going to be starting like a pen pal program with the kids with each other. So it might be the 6-year-old writing to my 13-year-olds, and they might be going back and forth, and so
Uh-huh.
they get a chance to learn from each other. My boys are probably the oldest in the group. I bring them onto some, calls, and they, as 13-year-olds, have an opportunity to become mentors and
Yeah.
express their leadership skills. So yeah, the goal really is to keep the main community, the way it's split up, as like a main place. And then the curriculum is split up by grades, and I only go to grade 7 right now. So
Okay. Yeah, that is neat too that you touched on that about the boys mentoring, because, like, if you really want to know that you've learned a skill, teach
we
it.
got to teach it.
Right.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
once you can do that, and it's like, I always think of that coming back to my fight days, like all the sloppy habits I'd pick up, or, like lazy habits, basically, like your foot's not facing a certain way, you're, twisting funny. But when you teach it, you just have to make sure it's textbook, because you want, so it made me better, right?
Yes,
Always. It's the
exactly.
same thing with like work. When I grew my construction company, in order to get a raise and an advancement to a new position, you had to train your replacement. It was
Right.
written in all of our documentation. So especially at the higher the first couple levels being like, laborers. We didn't even call them laborers, we called them associates, junior and senior associates. And the old school trades guys are like, they're laborers. I'm like, yeah, but it makes the young guys feel better. They're not just a dumb laborer, they're an associate of the company. And it just elevated their position and, whatever. And but yeah, when they would come up, I'd have guys that could have all the skills in the world and they'd want to be a foreman. And I'm like, you haven't even taught your replacement. And they're like, well, that's not my job. I'm like, you can't be a foreman and lead a crew if you can't teach people.
Exactly.
So do you want help? Do you want a course? Do you want to go down and do this other thing? And so with the younger kids and teaching that, like, we're on this weird transition and evolution. I think that we could either continue to decline as a society, or we could really take back control over, the education of the mass of people that's out there to advance us as a society. So many people have become so reliant upon big business and big government that it's causing a lot of problems and nobody's seeing it. And unfortunately, this is nothing new. This has happened thousands of times throughout history, and I'm excited because we're living through it, and it gives a lot of opportunity for people that are aware and want to make, bold decisions and move ahead with their businesses and their programs. There's a lot of people there waiting to become a part of it. So I'm
Yeah,
glad.
and I think those of us who are raising our kids up this way, I think our kids are going to be that next generation of the leaders, the creative thinkers, right? And I always say, God, what kind of people are my kids, our kids going to be in the world with? But they're going to be the ones that are leading the way. So it's scary, but it's also, I think, a really exciting time for people like us who can raise our kids up in a way where they get to be the leaders and learn how to do that. And then, yeah, they can be successful. And anybody
Yeah.
who is happy just following, great, you can come work for us.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's so true. So I'm really glad you could come on and share with me today and chat and talk and enlighten the audience. One more time, where can people find you on social media? What's the best place?
Sunit Speaks is pretty much my Instagram account where I hang out unless I get taken down again, which has happened a few times. I also have a second Instagram account called The Holi Life. So it's the.holy.life, which is the name of my podcast that I'm going to be relaunching. And that really is more geared towards like living a holistic life, like fashion, holistic health, beauty, that kind of thing. It's more geared towards moms and women. Um, and yeah, and then I can like send you a little link if people want to
Yeah.
join my email list for the Little Leaders community, and people can always click onto that and just pop your email address in, get on my list, and I communicate that way too.
Sweet. Well, that was so good. Sunit, I'm glad you could come on today, and I look forward to checking out Little Leaders and seeing what's going on. And I'm gonna join your email list myself, and I'll spread some good vibes. And yeah, we'll talk soon. We'll have to have you on as you launch your podcast. We'll do like a duo launch or something like that, or a duo episode. That could be fun for the
Yeah, that'd
community
be
too.
fun. Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
great. Thanks, Luke.
yeah. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
When the system shakes, paper wealth disappears overnight. But real wealth, it doesn't flinch. Gold and silver have outlasted every currency ever printed. The question isn't if this next storm comes, it's what will you do when it does. Visit learnwealthcycles.com. You too can own what's real.